These latest iterations represent the comprehensive, ambitious.
I believe it's to change our thinking. And maybe most importantly, taking the American-Chinese partnership on climate to a new level.
The COP26 is being regarded as the last and best hope for the world to avoid the climate crisis, to avoid a catastrophic scenario. According to your observation, is the COP26 is a success or not? Has the international community seized this last and best opportunity?
There are some positive outcomes of the Glasgow meeting, for sure. Prime Minister Modi of India made some new commitments from India to make sure that India will be half served by renewable power by 2030, which is a remarkable positive development. There are agreement on deforestation and on methane. And maybe most importantly, the agreement between Xie Zhenhua and John Kerry taking the American-Chinese partnership on climate to a new level is a remarkable achievement.
Mm-hmm. As you mentioned, China and the United States agrees to increase their cooperations. Do you think they could put aside their political differences and work along?
Yeah, I think this is a very, very hopeful signal. And I would be really giving great credit to my old friend Xie Zhenhua, who has worked so hard to achieve this, and it's because also his American counterpart, John Kerry, because partnership between the two main powers of the world, United States of America and China, is critical. That's very dangerous. It will make it much harder to achieve anything on climate, on COVID, on development, on peace, on trade. Basically, every issue we want to move ahead, we need global cooperation. There is an old Indian saying, the whole world is one family. And that should be our approach. We need to work together. And for that reason, this is very hopeful that China and the United States have decided to try to work together to face this huge issue for humankind.
And yesterday, a draft of the Glasgow Agreement was published, but some people criticize it. They say it doesn't go far enough or contribute little to actually promoting climate action. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I think we shouldn't focus so much on diplomacy because it's not the minor details of the text in Glasgow which will define the world. When President Xi decided that China will stop all overseas investments in coal, it's much more important to the world than any outcome of Glasgow. Because what it will mean is, of course, that Indonesia or Vietnam or Pakistan or Kenya will stop asking China to provide coal, and they will start asking China to provide wind and solar power and green hydrogen and electric cars, all those technologies which will transform the world. So that's a change in the real world out there for people will be immensely influenced by these decisions to stop coal. I think that probably the biggest difficulty is to make sure that there is a fair transition. And I think we need to learn from each other here, China, US, Europe, to see how we can make the transition fair, making schemes for retraining people who need to go into a new economy, making regional investments in those areas who may have difficulties with the transition. So both to the individuals and the communities, we need to do better. I remember visiting Didi, the Chinese car-sharing company. They had a specific program to retrain coal miners to go into the Didi car-sharing schemes and being drivers within Didi. These kind of programs to help people to manage the transition is key because you need to make it fair. Otherwise, you will have a lot of resistance to transition.
As you mentioned, you visited China many times to see the low carbon development in China. So what do you think of the low carbon development in China based on your trip?
I think it's an amazing change, and I'm very optimistic on behalf of China because first time I came to China, it was an extremely poor place. At the time, there was not one single private car in China. There was one metro line in Beijing, nowhere else in the land, no high-speed rail. And basically all Chinese wear the same clothes. The food was basically rice or noodles. At the time, China was much poorer than most nations in Africa. Now, of course, every Chinese have come out of extreme poverty. are living highly educated, beautiful, convenient lives. So when China can make that miracle happen, China can, of course, take the same lead in constructing the ecological civilization. No place has brought so many people out of poverty at such a short time. 10 years back, Chinese cities were among the most polluted in the world, but by and large, Chinese cities are now at a pollution level more like Europe and much, much lower than, say, India and many other developing countries.
And talking about the Belt and Road Institute, and you advocate for applying stronger standards for Chinese overseas projects along the Belt and Road. How will the Green Belt and Road Initiative help other countries to achieve sustainable development?
Yeah, for sure, China is the main investor in many countries. I think the vast majority of the nations in the world, China is now the biggest trade partner. So Chinese investment and Chinese trade is key to the green transformation. Historically, China took a view which was understandable, and that was that China will obey by the rules of every other nation when you invest there. However, that does not stand up to scrutiny now, because standards in China are so much higher and in many other developing countries. So China needs to start applying Chinese standards also for foreign investments. And that, by the way, is exactly the direction set by President Xi, who has repeatedly said that China should apply green, clean, and the best international standards. I believe it's to change our thinking, because our paradigm is old-fashioned, belongs to the 20th century. There was an old development model practiced in the United Kingdom, in Germany, in the United States, in Japan and Korea. First, you prioritize economic growth and you try to drive economic growth as fast as you can, and you pollute, like hell. And then you become rich, you start clamping down on pollution. But that's so much the past. The 21st century is about all those technologies which can bring people out of poverty, raise the living standards, make life for people happier, while at the same time protect Mother Earth. If we move from coal into solar and wind, we provide more jobs, more prosperity, but of course we are much kinder to Mother Earth.
And we noticed the focus of the talks have been shifted from the pledges to climate financing. Why is it so hard to reach targets, you think?
I think this is mainly a political and mostly symbolic issue. I mean, for sure, I believe that the developed nation should live up to the promise which was given. But overall, this is pocket money. This is very, very small money. The big money is with the private sector and with the governments to really move into the new economy. There are trillions of dollars of investment in the green economy already, and there need to be many, many more. Of course, the Belt and Road by itself is providing a lot more green investment than what's decided in Glasgow. So we should not focus on this pocket money in Glasgow, but on the big money, which are with the companies and the governments out there. The solution is very simple: to speed up the production of renewable energy, speed up solar, wind, hydrogen, maybe nuclear. But let's not forget, there have always been energy crises. I mean, throughout the history of coal and oil and gas, there was always different sort of crises. We should just see this as a very limited short-term hiccup. Very soon, the world energy system will come back into balance, but it needs to change, and it needs to change fast into renewables. And of course, China is very well placed to lead this. China's half the market for solar energy last year, the biggest wind power, the biggest green hydrogen power, biggest nation on electric mobility. So China can really lead the world into this new, much more environment-friendly and also much more people-friendly energy systems.
Mm-hmm. Of course, the world is still suffering the COVID-19. And in this context of COP26, I think it's very important to know how to achieve a green recovery.
Yeah, the green recovery, I think, is number one, to move very, very fast into electric mobility and renewable energy. Secondly, is to start constructing a circular economy. We need to move into a sharing economy and a circular economy. We cannot, every time we buy a new phone, just throw it away. All the components of that phone should be recircled. And thirdly, we need to take much better care of the planet. China will now plant trees in an area the size of Belgium, every year from now to 2030. And he launched a number of new national parks in China, which take care of some of the most beautiful parts of the Chinese environment. So if we follow these three lines, renewable energy, circular economy, and much more kind to the planet, then we will do well after the crisis.
知道视频，有趣有料的新闻短视频。